Being female is chromosomal, it's what you're born as. Being
True.
a woman is a societal construct. They
True.
can align, like yours obviously all align. Like you pointed over here, you're like, all the men over here. The first 30 years of my life, I was a woman. I transitioned.
So what's really funny, quite literally, Leon's physical being existing in the same room has refuted their entire ideology and all of the talking points they delivered in these 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Quite literally, just by existing, Leon has refuted all of their talking points. Simply by meeting the preconditions that society expects men to look like, these transphobes correctly gendering a trans man without even knowing it. Let's go, dude. This is what we like to see. So I've been talking a lot recently on this program, my Twitch stream, my YouTube, about topics related to feminism. I consider myself to be a feminist. Feminism is not, the plan of making women more important in society than men. It's to, instead of having men be all the way up here in terms of the amounts of influence and power and privileges they enjoy in society, to equalize it with women. And I'll include femme people as well, because femme people, if they identify as women or not, doesn't really matter. They're still subject to a lot of the misogyny and fetishization of femininity, whatever else. Anyway, so I figured, this new Jubilee video came out literally yesterday. Do all feminists think the same? Seems to be a pretty good way to continue the conversation.
Men can be feminist.
Wrong, brother man. If you're a man and you're a feminist, you're essentially a woman. Easiest way to transition as a man to be a woman in my eyes is if you start to be a feminist. I'm still not going to respect your identity, but I don't know what I'm saying. So to answer this question, because I'm pretending to be on this panel as well, can men be feminists? Obviously. The purpose of feminism is literally to equalize the genders, as it were, and make it so that nobody sees any more privilege than anybody else given their gender identity. Nobody sees any negatives or oppression given their gender identity. That is the point. It is not to make girl boss, Yas Queen, gatekeep, charge they phone, hot chip the hegemonic power. It's to equalize them.
2,
Just
1, go.
very easy answer here. This is about what I would expect.
I mean, I'm wearing a hoodie that says men can be feminists too. I feel like I have to be over here.
Soy boy.
I think most men that are feminists are like usually either lazy, virtue signaling, just want to see tits, or access to easy sex.
What? So the meme is, and I've heard this a lot before, is like, ooh, there are men out there that just be feminists so they could weasel their way into women's spaces and then get with women in that way. This is a tired take that is literally just meant to stop solidarity between gender identities, specifically women and men, from working together to achieve the equality that feminism is meant to achieve. That's literally all it is. It's like a psyop almost. This does not happen. And if it does, it only happened maybe a couple times in the case of Barack Obama, who famously said that he ended up reading like Marxist or socialist theory to get with women. That was the only time it's ever happened. I don't know what I'm saying. Listen, there are some bad vibes from this person. What makes a male feminist lazy? What is it, like the idea that this lazy male feminist wants to be a feminist to equalize the genders so that women have to do more work, so that they would have to do less work? Or like make women do even more work than men? Virtue signaling I can understand. I don't know if we'll find out later on, but for what I'm hearing right now, this person might literally be a feminist just to virtue signal. I'm gonna make that call right now, given the answer that I've just heard from this person, but let's find out.
I see what you're saying when you're like, there's this performative feminism that a lot of guys do. So if a male feminist is like, oh, I only support like women and it's just only about that, but he's not even talking about how like feminism needs to support men.
True.
Or like trans people or whatever.
True.
Then there is a performativeness to it.
White feminist voices are too loud. 3.
So this is obviously hinting at the differences between the way that white women experience marginalized status on the basis of their gender identity in society, and then the racial components of black and brown women.
I somewhat agree, like that white feminist voices are too loud, but then I think that they become really good at using black women or black faces when they want to, push their movement further.
So yeah, Well, fuck, I had a thing and then she said some shit and then I forgot. This is the problem with women, okay? As soon as they start talking, I just cannot stop paying attention, just out of respect, because if I don't, then I'm a bad feminist. Anyway, I guess it'll probably come to me.
There's not discussion about the Latinas immigrant, how they get treated on the feminist movement. You know, it's always about either the pro-choice side or something else that is more interesting to white.
When you think of feminism, you usually think of a white lady. And I think that's still perpetuated, even though there'd be like a lot of black women behind the scenes doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and often are in a lot of civil rights movements.
What I meant to say before I got distracted and didn't want to be a bad feminist, if it is the case that there are times where white feminists and white women are too loud in contrast to non-white feminists, it's going to be more than likely because of white supremacy and how it's systemic to our society and the ripple effects that it has throughout a variety of things that are sometimes even hard to notice. That would be the major thing because of the amounts of privilege you get for being white outside of your gender identity at all. And that's also to go along with what Leon said, in that when you think of a feminist, you think white woman. That is a product of white supremacy. And Leon went on to say that, especially in civil rights movements, black women have been the people pulling the most weight a lot of the time. And you would expect that to be the case, because not only do black women and just women of color have to deal with the misogyny, but they also have to deal with the racism involved, which is obviously going to make their advocacy a lot harder than a white woman's, because a white woman doesn't have to deal with the racial component. They just have to deal with the misogyny. And in that way, they're able to be more outspoken, to be louder in contrast because of white supremacy. They are taken more seriously than black or brown women.
White women have certain rights they need through feminism as other people, but they're just always taken more seriously by everyone.
I'll read off a list of public figures and you'll go to your left if you believe the person to be a feminist, or the right if you don't think they're a feminist. Kim Kardashian.
How the hell am I supposed to know? So this is the SEO segment of this video, apparently, where we're just trying to name drop as many celebrities as possible for the clout. I see you, Jubilee. I don't know enough about Kim Kardashian to know. I don't follow what these public figures are doing.
She went from doing her show and the whole like sex scandal thing to like, you know, now she's working in law and civil rights, and she's done the whole family thing. Ultimately,
Can I just say, though, Kim Kardashian is obviously like one of the quintessential girl bosses of our generation, and she successfully parlayed a sex tape, which for a lot of women, especially at the time that it came out, would have, especially as a public figure, because of how stigmatized women being sexual at all is in society, that could have sunk most people. Most people's public perception after a sex tape comes out is probably just going to plummet to the core of the earth. And if they had any relevancy, it's now gone. But Kim Kardashian was able to successfully parlay that into being one of the richest women in the world.
Kim Kardashian is a woman that has like done what she's wanted to do.
Amy Coney Barrett.
Obviously not. The fuck? What do you mean? I kind of, buried the lead a little bit in the beginning of this video. Jubilee likes to get people of all ideologies to get every side. I imagine we have some conservative feminists in our midst here, but that's a contradiction. It is quite literally impossible, definitionally, to be a feminist and also be a conservative. Because conservative ideology does not push for equality for literally anybody. Conservative ideology at its most basic is essentially things are this way, and they've always been this way, and we want to keep them this way. If conservatives had their way, women would still be second-class citizens and property of their husbands. If conservatives had their way, black people would still be property wholesale. Literally, the only reason conservative women can even call themselves feminists to begin with is because of the amount of effort that liberal and leftist feminists have done to even make that possible. And a lot of the time, conservative feminists will be actually actively working to undo that progress. Definitionally, you cannot be a conservative and a feminist. So in that way, Amy Coney Barrett, being conservative, I would say not feminist.
Amy Coney Barrett, in my opinion, is like the epitome of a feminist.
Yeah,
she's literally...
I thought this might be the case. We got one of our conservative feminists.
She's literally like a Supreme Court justice in like the highest court of the land.
What does that have to do with feminism? The only time that feminism has anything to do with becoming a Supreme Court justice is obviously the work that progressive feminists had to do to even make that possible.
Disproves the narrative that women have to choose between having a career and a family.
What do you mean disproves the narrative? The only reason that narrative would exist is because women were precluded in society by conservatives and right-wingers from having careers to begin with. For a long time, the purpose of a woman was to be the servant of a man and be an incubator for the child. That was literally it. That's like a lot of what traditional conservatives argue for. So like literally conservative makes it so that there's even a conversation about women have to choose between having a family and a career. And even then, if you're trying to be even more liberal with that analysis of like, oh, women have to choose between having a career or a family, I wonder why they might have to make that choice. Why can't they do both at the same time? It might be because having a child is very expensive. Caring for the child is very expensive in that you can't work at the same time and provide an income. So if you wanted a person to be able to do both, we would try to legislate paid family leave, which the United States does not do at all federally. Compared to every other industrialized nation, the United States does not guarantee paid family leave to anybody. So that might be something to analyze. Perhaps beefing up the social safety net and allowing for either the subsidization for poorer people for childcare so that they can actually put their kids in daycare while they go to work instead of having to rely on family members or just not go to work to begin with. Maybe we would make it so that people aren't strapped financially because of medical bills or student loans. But obviously this is all spooky socialism. This is all scary communism, even though it's being done in capitalist countries around the world. But I guess we'll see where we go from here.
I don't really agree with her a lot on her political stances, but I think more so as just being a role model for women to be on a level of the Supreme Court where it's primarily dominated by men.
That's a liberal take, by the way. And I mean, imagine my shock that the liberal male feminist is going to be wearing a shirt that says this. Like, ooh, just because she might be like morally reprehensible and actually acting against the interests of women and their freedom and liberty, but she's in the position, so let's go, dude.
J.K. Rowling.
Oh boy, this is a fun one. This is a real fun one. This is the content pick right here.
3 years ago, I would have said yes, and there's still a lot of reasons I would. She was a single mom, she wrote all the books, she became a billionaire. The reason I would say kind of no now.
What is this conflation between success in a career as a woman with feminism? Obviously, feminism and the equalization of genders in society and the power that they hold would facilitate the ease of women being successful in careers compared to the past. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what feminism is, right? The point is to allow for the opportunity, not when it happens, that's when that is feminism. I don't know.
Is her just kind of weird anti-trans zealotry she's gotten involved in that kind of undercuts a lot of her other feminist stuff.
I mean, I disagree that just for the fact that she expresses her own opinions, that now people like literally crucified her and really want to like put her under and undermine everything she has done, you know?
It's just she has...
You understand that there are TERFs out there that literally follow J.K. Rowling like she is the second coming of Christ, that figuratively crucify trans women online? Do you see the shit that J.K. Rowling supporting TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists, say about trans women? Good God. Talk about getting crucified. J.K. Rowling is doing fine. Literally a millionaire or billionaire. No amount of negative words on the timeline is going to affect her. And if it does mentally, she has the amount of money she needs to get proper mental care. I don't know. I find it hard to care. It's not to say that rich people can't suffer mentally from negative backlash and they're like, oh, if you're rich, you shouldn't, talk about your mental issues. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that because of how reprehensible her views are, and because of the fact that her words facilitate active harm on trans people in society who are simply just trying to exist, then it becomes a problem. Then I start to have a problem with it. We don't exist in this vacuum where like, oh my God, you're just expressing their opinion and I respect it, that you could just respect, they're just expressing an opinion. We don't live in that fucking vacuum, man. We don't live in the goddamn outer states looking at the fucking US like an ant farm. We live in society, and as a result, your words as a public figure have repercussions in society. And J.K. Rowling's just tend to lead to the harm of trans people. Isn't that so crazy? The fact that her transphobic talking points might actually hurt people in real life, even though she's not directly hurting them herself. Nonsense. No way. That could never happen.
Such a big platform that when you're talking like this very extreme stuff about a marginalized group, that's really the issue.
Why should women like with a platform be forced to align with the mainstream narrative of what it means to be a woman and a feminist?
All right, this person's absolutely a conservative. And not for literally anything that she's just said, except for align with the mainstream narrative. The almighty trans narrative, man. The mainstream narrative about trans people is not like, oh my god, they're accepted in society, there's no problems here. You're just mad you're getting TOS'd on the timeline for telling trans women to kill themselves. That's what you think the mainstream narrative is. Because you see TERFs online getting shit on by pro-trans people for their anti-trans takes does not mean that the mainstream narrative is that. The main reason why people are so excited and so brave and be transphobic with their entire chest is because trans people are some of the most marginalized people in our society, especially trans women of color and black trans women. People get away with so much transphobia that if it happened to a person on the basis of their skin color, people would be up in arms. People would be like, if you thought cancel culture was real, see what happens if you apply TERF rhetoric, but switch out the gender identity for skin color, and see how hard it is to be a TERF on the internet, to be an anti-trans feminist on the internet. You've got no idea what you're talking about. It's not a mainstream narrative to be pro-trans. The status quo is to be heavily anti-trans. The legislative reality in the United States and a lot of other places around the world where it's worse is to be anti-trans, or at the very least, to be negligent to the needs of trans people to the point where they suffer in society. I'm sorry, I cannot let people get away with this, oh, the mainstream narrative this, just because trans people get some amount of support through words on a timeline.
Like, why can't her own personal journey be enough?
It really comes down to not that it's an opinion, it's that she's spreading a lot of dangerous misinformation.
But based on what, though? Because you don't agree with it?
No, it's scientific.
No, yeah, exactly, Leon. Talk that shit! It's because science doesn't agree with it. Scientifically, factually, there is a difference between sex and gender. And just because you're too uneducated to understand that doesn't mean that this difference of opinion is just that. You disagree with reality. That's a you problem. We are doing, as real feminists, the work to educate people on the actual reality. But I'll let Leon, I don't need to speak over Leon.
No, it's scientific facts. Like, she's just talking about stuff that's incorrect. And her ideas about trans men have affected legislation that harms trans men getting the resources they need.
Trans women are women.
True. This is the easiest, vociferously, exuberantly, righteously agree I have ever seen. Now, obviously, the mainstream narrative would have you either be in the center or on the strongly disagree side, which is, I assume, where these two people are going, because these are the token conservative feminists out there. Yeah, this is the TERF self-reporting hour.
2, 1, go.
I think we're all just positioned here based on our political beliefs.
And also a belief in the actual scientific reality of the world. This is why this person's a liberal. We're not positioned here based on our political beliefs. Oh, no. I'm on the strongly agree side, and it's based on scientific reality, my friend, not just political beliefs.
For how we see the LGBTQ.
I mean, I think it's also split between, all the men are on that side and all the women are on this side. I know, being a woman, that there are certain things that we have to deal with as women that people who are not, biologically women don't have to deal with. I mean, we have
This is what we call a girl boss moment.
Like, deal with having our periods and go through that really awkward stage when we're 13, and people who are, trans women don't have to go through that.
Trans women.
And
Live their entire lives as women. They don't turn it off. It's not something that they're turning off, and then to come up to them and say, oh yeah, I see you're doing this, but you're not a woman. You know, it's kind of insulting.
How do you live your life as a woman?
That is very true, actually. That is very true. So he says that trans women live their entire lives as women, and they can't just turn it off. Now, it could be the case that, you know, they weren't, like, the trans women weren't aware that they were trans for a while, and, like, they were socialized and went through different things in a different way as their biological sex. That is certainly true. There are people that realize they're trans late into the game, even though in theory, they've always been women. They've always been trans women. So obviously it's not one-to-one. But in terms of like gender dysphoria, body dysmorphia, in terms of the negative societal repercussions to being a trans woman in society, especially when you're younger, in regards to a lot of the child abuse that trans people have to deal with, in regards to the housing insecurity if their parents, if they come out or they're found out and their parents kick them out of the house or are emotionally, verbally, physically abusive to them. Essentially, all of the conservative talking points, but applied to real life. That's a thing that trans women have to go through that's different from cis women. And I see no reason to draw much of a distinction other than to rectify negative outcomes for either side, you know, cis or trans women, because they're all women. He says, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. If your womanhood is only limited to the struggles and pain that you may face through periods and giving birth, then your definition of womanhood is genuinely miserable and not as empowering as you think it comes off. Yeah, and it doesn't account for a variety of people that don't go through those struggles because of biological or genetic or just like aberrant things in regards to reasons someone might be infertile, intersex people, women who go through menopause. There's a whole different variety of things that women have to go through that differ from even other cis women. So to reduce it down in this incredibly essentialist way is just a ridiculous argument, and yeah, not as nearly as empowering as they might think it is. It's really funny too, because like in general, feminists will be like, oh my god, what men just see women as, you know, sex objects and incubators for children, and they just reduce us down to our genitals. But then when it comes to talking about trans women, literally it's like, oh well, womanhood is literally just what the genitals you have, and it's like, you're literally counterproductive to the cause of feminism by being this way. Very odd stuff.
You're doing this, but you're not a woman. You know, it's kind of insulting.
How do you live your life as a woman? Because every single time somebody says that, they name the most stereotypical things. It's like putting on a dress, putting on makeup. It's biological. I was born.
It's not biological. You've literally just described the difference between sex and gender, but your ideology blinds you to that scientific reality. Because of the conflation between sex and gender, just because the status quo has just been that those are the same thing, even though they factually are not. And this goes back to the Matt Walsh video, and when he talks about like, oh, well, you essentially think that womanhood is just a costume you can put on. Yes. Now, biological sex is not a costume you can just put on, at least not yet. We haven't gotten to that transhumanist future yet, inshallah. But when it comes to gender identity, as a woman, yeah, it kind of is. So the example I give is if you see woman, let's go. You see this person on the street, you're probably just going to assume they're a woman, right? But you know nothing about them. You don't know what chromosomes they have. You don't know what genitals they have. And now I know the conservatives watching are very excited to do genital inspections in the bathroom. I know you're fucking freaky like that and you're really excited about it, but bear with me for a second. You don't know anything about this person's biological makeup. You just know that they look the way that they look like, their aesthetic, their expression, their gender expression. You would correctly, in the case of a cis woman, identify this person as a woman. You would correctly, as a trans woman, identify this person as a woman. And why is that? Oh, it's because of the costume that she's wearing. If you find a person that looks like this, and you go up to them and assume that they're a woman, I don't know how you get that assumption, but it's also totally possible. It's just a costume you put on. Most people would assume that this is a man, but given enough testosterone for a person who was assigned female at birth, you can achieve levels of facial hair like this. You can achieve a deeper voice. Through vocal training, you can achieve a more feminine voice too for the trans women or trans femmes out there. The clothes that you wear, it's all a costume. That's the difference between sex and gender. Sex is the chromosomes you have, the genitalia you have, the secondary and primary sexual characteristics. Gender is the expression. Medically, the difference between sex and gender does matter more. In medical records, your biological sex is still required and not conflated with gender because they are different things. Even the medical system recognizes this. But I mean, if you want to disagree with the consensus of medical science, then I guess feel free, but you're just living in an alternate reality because you cannot possibly contend with the one we actually live in.
All it is biological.
I can't be a man.
So
I can't be a man no matter how much I try.
You can though. You can't be a biological man. You can't be born with the set of chromosomes and a penis and whatever to be a biological man. But if you put in the time, started wearing more masculine clothing, started taking testosterone, stopped shaving, if you trained your voice and through the introduction of testosterone had a deeper voice, you would start being recognized as a man in society because it is socially constructed what a man and a woman is supposed to look like.
And it's just, chromosomes and that's it?
Are the differences just chromosomes, just having children? That's like so hurtful and discriminatory against women because
She almost said real women. I guarantee it, wait.
That's like so hurtful and discriminatory against women.
She paused. She paused! She paused! She paused. I think it is not a logical leap that she was going to say real women. She just swallowed it. Imagine being a transphobe and claiming that something a pro-trans person is doing is against women. You think just because somebody has a certain set of biological characteristics, if they're correctly assumed to be their gender as a woman in this context, as a trans woman, by the way, it's not to say that you have to pass to be a woman or a man. You don't have to. But currently in society, that's how the things kind of shake out. So in that context, I have to talk about it like this. So there could be women that are trans women that you don't even know. And because of your rhetoric, you could be actively harming them. To be a trans-exclusionary radical feminist is literally to exclude women. What do they gain from gatekeeping like that? I honestly don't know. There is literally nothing to be gained from being transphobic in society outside of like internet clout from other conservatives. And I guess that's how a lot of people use it, right? Because trans people are currently like some of the most marginalized people out there, especially trans women of color and black trans women. Because they're like the most marginalized, it is the most currently societally acceptable to be bigoted against them, openly so. Which is why, J.K. Rowling is doing very well outside of the, the witch hunt against her, whatever else. Or Dave Chappelle's special did very well. It is incredibly marketable to be transphobic currently. Because you get a lot of publicity, negative or positive, doesn't matter. All publicity is good publicity. I feel like people always miss the fact that parts of many, but not all, people's transitions are biological. Hormones are a component of biology. There are more parts of biology than just the sex chromosomes. This is true, yeah. Literally, the introduction of new hormones into one's body is a biological process.
Because femininity and womanhood is so much more than just, getting dressed up and putting on makeup.
That's an interesting conflation too. Sorry I'm pausing so much. But femininity being intrinsically linked to women, there is no essential link between being a woman and being feminine. There are more masculine women out there. There are, like, butch lesbians are the prime example. A lot of butch lesbians literally just look like men, but they still identify as women. Femininity is not intrinsically linked there. And the idea that you think it might is just another product of your ideology, blinding you and your authoritarian nature and wanting to control how people express themselves when they're hurting nobody.
And just the way I feel, it's who I am on a biological level.
Right, so for you,
so it's just biological essentialism. I mean, at least we've finally been honest about it. We tiptoed around it for a while, but at least we've just said it now.
Is the ability to create life, and that's basically what makes you a woman.
What makes you a man? Or would you consider yourself a man? I probably should.
Yeah, I was born a man. I behave as a man. I carry myself
through society. So what would I have to do to be a man like you?
I've already said all this, but let's see what he says.
I want to be a man now.
So we can both agree that our society has things that men generally do, things that women generally do, right? If you start to fall on one side of the spectrum versus the other side of the spectrum, then you're going to be treated as that gender.
I think it's a little obscure.
It's almost like it's a costume that you wear. It's almost like gendered expression is different from your biological makeup. And society will interpret you based on the preconceived notions of how they think people should be. And it's funny in that way too, because a lot of feminists are very active against, like, women have to be this way, women have to be that way. Societal expectations, beauty standards for women are oppressive, and they are. But at the same time, when it comes to trans women, it's like, oh no, but literally that's what a woman is. Like, that's what you have to do. It's literally a product of the imbalance between genders that feminism is trying to solve for that causes those negative ramifications for women in regards to beauty standards and all that, and also is what causes people to see other people as a woman or a man based on what society expects a woman or a man to be. And in that way, this is also the standard that trans men and trans women are also held to, and non-binary identities and the like. simultaneously, you're working against a thing, but also you're employing it when it's strategically useful for your ideology. You're not helping anybody. Well, that's another thing, Trad, is that trans women specifically, because women in general are very scrutinized for the way they present themselves, trans women are scrutinized even harder and have to sometimes even overcompensate, like you say, in their gender expression to be perceived in society as women. This is why there's a lot of hyper-femininity when it comes to trans women and how they present themselves. Trans femme people will feel the need to overcompensate so that they are correctly gendered in society because of these expectations.
I think you're a masculine woman or a feminine man. That doesn't make you that gender. And to try to like deny just basic biological facts.
Bro, do I got a mirror somewhere around me? I don't know if these lights are lit up by a projector. We could probably just wheel the projector out and just give it to her if she wants to project this hard. Jesus Christ. Deny basic biology as you're denying the scientific consensus about biology and societal constructs, sex being biology and gender being a societal construct. There's a difference there. Incoherence at its finest. Well, yeah, but to be a conservative necessitates that you have a irrational and incoherent ideology. Conservatism is literally built upon a myriad of fundamental contradictions that they might try to rectify, usually through force, but can never actually, because it's usually just a fruitless effort of denying scientific reality. So to project in this way is just hilarious to me.
Something new and different now because it's like the hip thing to say.
It's so funny too. The projection. We project about not understanding basic biology in that she doesn't, but also we project about like, oh, it's the hip thing to say. Like what? Being trans is just for the clout? It's almost like you're analyzing the situation through the point of why you call yourself a feminist. Earlier in the video, I predicted that she was literally just calling herself a feminist to virtue signal. And after everything that I've heard so far from her and the other conservative woman on the panel, you're literally just calling yourself a feminist as a virtue signal for clout. It's abundantly clear that you do not understand what feminism is supposed to be for, the equality of all genders, and you're just using it to be able to mask your more odious opinions about trans people. And I was correct. I correctly identified this very early on. Essentially, if a right-winger says a thing that left-leaning people are doing, just assume that they're doing that thing. In regards to like child abuse, conservatives like Matt Walsh will always say, oh, these parents that affirm their child's gender, they're being abusive to their kids. When his prescription for if your child comes to you in a very vulnerable moment and is like, yo, I don't know if I'm a girl or not, even though I'm supposed to be or whatever, what do? The prescription is like, no, you're fucking stupid, kid. You don't know shit. Matt Walsh says he violates the consent of his kids all the time. Literally like is pro-conversion therapy. His prescriptions are literally child abuse. So when he says that the parents of trans kids affirming their kids' gender identity is child abuse, it's just projection. Because that's what he advocates for. And that's usually the case when it comes to a lot of conservative talking points.
Conflating of being female versus being a woman. Being female is chromosomal, it's what you're born as. Being a woman is a societal construct. They can align, like yours obviously all align. Like you pointed over here, you're like, all the men over here. The first 30 years of my life, I was a woman. I transitioned. It's a disconnect with what you're born as and what you feel you should be.
So gender dysphoria.
So what's really funny is that I'm pretty sure earlier in the video, one of these people said that in response to one of the questions, one of the people was like, oh, well, this is very obvious because all the women are one side of the panel, all the men are on the other, and Leon is quite literally one of those men that was on the other. We assume a trans man now that Leon has divulged the information. Quite literally, Leon's physical being existing in the same room has refuted their entire ideology and all of the talking points they delivered in these 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Quite literally, just by existing, Leon has refuted all of their talking points. Simply by meeting the preconditions that society expects men to look like, these transphobes correctly gendering a trans man without even knowing it. Let's fucking go, dude. This is what we like to see. Leon is a king.
Life, I was a woman. I transitioned.
This is, by the way, that's why trans people existing is such a quote-unquote negative for transphobes, is that quite literally by existing, we do refute their points. Just by existing. Which is why transphobes get mad at trans people simply for existing. There's no actual harm being done. The only thing that people can say is like, oh, well, child abuse, blah, 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 blah. What if the child is not actually trans or whatever else? That's why there's a very rigorous set of preconditions you have to meet in the medical system and mental health system in order to assess the kid on whether or not they're trans. It's actually very hard a lot of the time for trans people in society to get the care that they need to determine whether or not they're actually trans to begin with, and if they are, to actually proceed to transition through completely reversible puberty blockers or hormones or whatever else. For some reason, you know, transphobes just think that as soon as you say you're trans, you just get your fucking vagina turned into a penis or you get your cock and balls chopped off. But that's not how that works. It's very difficult because of transphobes, but also pro-trans people advocate for a fairly rigorous medical and psychological process for determining whether or not a kid is trans, which is why the puberty blockers that have been used since before all of this trans stuff, before the talking point was there, puberty blockers were used for even cis people because they're completely reversible, and once you take the kid off them, they just go through a late puberty. It matches their biological sex. Oh, wow. He's fine now. That's so crazy. It's almost like people go through late puberties all the time just by default. There is no harm being done by trans people existing, and it's simply because trans people are so good at proving the ideology of conservatives wrong simply by being alive. This is why I get the 40% comments in my comments. This is why I get told to kill myself on a daily basis existing as a trans person on the internet. Because they can't beat me in the marketplace of ideas. They can't refute scientific reality. They have to fabricate one, and the only way that they could hope to win is through exacerbating, you know, the so-called trans suicide rate of 40%, which is just attempts, not successes. 70% of all suicides are men, and those are successful. Be careful out there advocating for people to commit suicide. Clean your own house first, maybe. This is why this is the response. Just complete belligerency with no argument, and just a refutation of scientific consensus and fact.
So gender dysphoria?
Yes.
Okay, I can believe that. I 100% could believe that, yeah.
If it was just
well, yeah, like... cis people have gender dysphoria sometimes too. There are like cis women who identify very strongly with being a cis woman that might have bigger shoulders, might be taller. There are elements of gender dysphoria that don't just affect trans people. They affect cis people too. It is not intrinsic to trans people to have gender dysphoria.
Like, I just wanted to be a masculine woman. Then sure, that's easy to do, but that didn't work. I'm not gonna say I'm male. I wasn't born with XY.
Can we get some claps in the chat for Leon,
no trans person will ever tell you they're biologically born that way.
A feel strong man clap, maybe?
If anyone knows anything about biology, it's trans people. That's why they have to get hormones and do all this other stuff. And it doesn't take away your womanhood if someone else is a different type of woman. It's a different experience that shouldn't make you feel less of a woman if they're around or vice versa.
Wait, did they have the socials in here? No! I was hoping to see if Leon had social media. If Leon had a Twitter, I would absolutely follow. Even if Leon posts literally nothing but like dog pictures or whatever, or cat pics, I would still follow. But I guess the other people are here. So I guess while we're here, let's find out. Pro-life Barbie, nice. Imagine being pro-life, literally the talking point that restricts the liberty of women and further oppresses them. Very cool. Abortion is not healthcare. It definitionally is. What the fuck are you talking about? Oh, TPUSA. Look at that. Exciting. Exciting stuff. At Trump Tower. Obviously going to be a Trump supporter. Not very shocking. Don't tread on me. Except you're literally treading on the rights of women. Wait. Wait just a goddamn second. Which I got distracted by the TPUSA, but apparently it gets even more odious. Oh no. The man, the myth, the legend. This man was slandered by the media and called the white supremacist simply for defending himself. They could do this to Kyle, they could do this to you. He stood up and not only for his right to defend himself, but the rights of everyday Americans. Thank you, Kyle Rittenhouse. I'll be happy to watch you become a billionaire. Okay, dude. Whatever it is you think about Kyle Rittenhouse and whether or not what he did was good or bad, the fact that after winning the case has gone on to go on the worst people's platforms, Steven Crowder, he was on with Jack Posobiec and what's the one with the small face? Charlie Kirk. Jack Posobiec, by the way, literal Nazi. Literally a 1488 poster. Like, I don't know, man. Like, regardless of what you think about what he did, he's clearly got an ideology. He's not this apolitical actor. Jonathan Walton, oh my god, he's a gamer! Let's go! Also doing sponsored content, Pog. Wait. Oh, wait, is this his cosplay? He's a gamer and a weeb? For one of the objectively best anime characters out there? That's crazy. Let's go, dude. Drives a Tesla, though. This is the only sussy baka part of the equation here. I'm still very sad about the lack of Leon social media. But listen, that's what's even more based about Leon. Like, we thought, like, simply by existing and refuting the talking points in real time of these two transphobes, but also, apparently, Leon just doesn't use social media, which just essentially elevates him to God King status, because none of us are without sin, okay? And using social media might be some of the highest levels of sin, and somehow Leon has been able to escape its slithery grasp.
Do you all feel like the feminist movement should be fighting for trans women within that movement?
Yes, because trans women are women. And regardless of if your ideology makes you think otherwise, quite literally, fighting for the rights of trans women helps and facilitates the continued fight for the rights of cis women. In fact, to oppress trans women further allows misogynists to oppress cis women. So it would be foolish not to fight for trans women as a feminist.
I mean, it should be fighting for everyone's genders, whether they're trans women, trans men, cis women, cis men, or non-binary people.
True.
That's just part of feminism.
And I've been saying this since the beginning as well. Feminism is not strictly about like women's rights. Obviously, it's a big part of it, because men are the hegemonic power in society. Women face a lot of misogyny and oppression for the fact that it's not equal.
I don't think so. I think it defeats the entire movement.
This person is not a feminist. This person is a FINO. Feminist in name only. Literally, it's just a virtue signal. It's just for clout. It's just for clicks. And she has to have a social media. Has somebody found it yet? Well, I guess you could elect not to have your shit on there, but I don't know why you wouldn't, especially if it's all for clout. Like, if it's not all for clout, then this is just a sorely misled person that's just hateful against trans people. One has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. Also, I wonder if this person has any takes on trans bathroom bills or trans exclusionary legislation. He who dares not offend cannot be honest. Okay, dude. Bro, you bristle at the existence of trans people. You're literally offended that trans people exist. I don't think you get to talk about other people being easily offended. Get vaxxed or be jobless and miserable. Oh, no. Oh, she's an anti-vaxxer. Oh, no. Is this true? Wait, let's not get too hasty. People in my comments pretending NYC restaurants are imposing vax passports just because. The actual mayor of NYC will create more mandates, incorporate more coercion, all the way up to until you losing your livelihood and everything enjoyable about life until you do what we say. Coercion, compulsion, forcible constraint, blah, blah, blah. Things may start including more definitions by... Okay, so we're just like, ooh, I'm a libertarian, which means that I am for liberty, except, you know, until you get COVID and your liberty is restricted by the fact that you have COVID and you've either died, have long COVID, or are severely injured. Okay, dude. Okay, dude. All right, let's get back to this. I'm getting brain rot. This is the woman that said, yeah, we learned basic biology in high school, and yet we don't understand how vaccines and viruses work.
Every feminist should be pro-choice. 3, 2, 1, go.
Very true. What is this? So now that we know more, especially about Rhonda, in the fact that she is very about liberty, apparently, describes herself as a fighter for freedom and is a libertarian, how can you not be for women's liberty to make decisions about their reproductive health by themselves on their own? I don't get it!
I consider myself to be a pro-life feminist.
AKA not a feminist.
I think that the idea that we can tell women...
Bro, Leon has got such a mean mug. I love him.
That they can't identify as feminists unless they say that they're pro-choice goes totally against everything that feminism stands for.
I agree with that, and I think there's actually something that's beautiful about womanhood and women in general, and something that kind of shows ways that modern feminism has kind of been a little exclusionary, because women come from all different backgrounds and thought processes, and I think we should support the freedom of choice, the freedom of speech, regardless of the lifestyle that that woman wants to choose.
Wait, so why do you strongly disagree that every feminist should be pro-choice? You're like, oh my god, we should support the freedom and liberty for differing opinions, but also legislatively, as a feminist, I am against the liberty of women. I'm at the point where I am relatively certain, with no proof, that TERFs and so-called pro-life feminists, it's just a psyop. It's just COINTELPRO, it's just CIA, it's just FBI, it's just a federal agent. I'm sorry, I can't understand it otherwise.
The American people
I can't do it.
Of women.
Like, you are literally counter to the movement you ostensibly are a part of. Get some bitches already? That's what I'm saying, dude. Jesus Christ. To be a pro-life feminist, to be a trans-exclusionary radical feminist, you have no bitches. Like, that's it. This is you. If you're a TERF, if you're a pro-life feminist, you have no bitches. Anybody who disagrees with me is bitchless. It just seems like TERFs and pro-life feminists, literally just a psyop to weaken the movement, to sow discord in the movement, and make it so that feminism has a harder time actually achieving the aims of equality of gender. Anyway, let's continue. I've been doing this for what, an hour and a half now, and we're 10.5 minutes in? This is my fucking problem. If
you personally feel you're pro-life, that's fine. Feminism as a movement should be pro-choice.
Turn it up! Okay, Leon is talking, I agree.
To allow anyone to choose whatever path they want to have, whether they want to have children or not have children or have abortions or whatever. But if feminism is pro-life, then you've blocked one group of people from choosing whether they want to have abortions or their own family planning.
One of the pushbacks that I would just love to give is I believe that abortion is wildly discriminatory against women and against people with disabilities. Baby girls are aborted at a higher rate, which is so sexist. And so
Since an ultrasound creates an image of your baby, it can also reveal the sex of your baby. Most doctors schedule an ultrasound at around 18 to 21 weeks, but the sex may be determined by ultrasound as early as 14 weeks. Pregnancy is divided into trimesters. The first trimester is from 1 week to the end of week 12. Sex may be determined by ultrasound as early as 14 weeks. Most doctors schedule an ultrasound at around 18 to 21 weeks, which is way late into the game, which is after when most abortions happen. So I don't know where you're getting these stats from. If most abortions happen before we can even possibly know the sex of the baby, like, do you really think people are going for early ultrasounds to determine if they're gonna have a girl or a boy? And then if they find out that they have the girl chromosome, they kill it? What are you talking about?
truly don't think that you can be a feminist who is pro-choice, because these are discriminatory practices.
So I am pro-choice.
Bro, your entire ideology is built on a foundation of paper mache weighted down by scientific reality that weighs at least as much as Mercury. It's a smaller planet than Earth is. Like, come on now.
I feel like somebody should have whatever type of choice that they want to make. They should have an equal say as far as, hey, this is my body, I want to be able to have an abortion, or just as equally, I want to say I'm going to have this baby. So, and I do believe it's 100% up to the woman. A feminist should probably be more aligned with giving someone their own choice.
True.
Menstrual products should be free.
True. Okay, I have to see unanimous support for this. This has to be a unanimous yes, even for the conservatives, right?
3, 2, 1, go.
No, never mind.
Just
Oh
being
my
able
God,
to-
we're even strongly disagreeing. Jesus. Bro, you literally... In the beginning, lady who was strongly disagreeing said that, oh my God, trans women are not women because they don't go through menstrual cycles, they don't have periods, so like you don't know the struggles that we go through. But you also want to make people struggle more if they can't afford the shit that makes the menstruation cycle easier! Or at least more hygienic. Jesus fuck, man! Oh my God, like women in this ideal worldview, right, of this person, is like, yo, no. If you can't afford a pad or a tampon, sorry, maybe invest in darker pants, maybe, so people can't see it. Like, what the fuck? Maybe, like, duct tape yourself shut? As a free bleeder, I can sense she's one of us. She does put out the vibes.
To provide, for example, on the low-income school, you know, there's a lot of girls that cannot afford them. You know, and they're ashamed to ask for it.
I mean, I personally believe that anything that you didn't, I guess, ask for, like menstrual cycles, or even, I mean, if we get into healthcare, I think that should all be added on.
I believe
this is all stuff that you don't have a choice in. You cannot have a choice in this stuff. The government, if we're going to use taxes collected from the state and subsidize people's menstrual products, which just makes their quality of life better, makes them have a more hygienic period, and all this kind of thing, why wouldn't we do this? It's kind of the point of the state to do this.
I believe that everyone should be compensated for their labor, and I believe that creating and producing menstrual products, it's a service, and that people should get paid.
This is your brain on conservatism. Do you really think that if the government subsidizes menstrual products for people, that the people that manufacture the menstrual products are not gonna get paid? Please tell me you're not this fucking stupid. Oh, God. This is the ideological side of the fence that loves exploiting people for their labor, by the way. This is literally just a cynical weaponization of like left-leaning commentary, like, and talking points. That's all that is. She is just cynically weaponizing leftist talking points that she's heard on the internet in regards to the compensation of labor, but understands literally nothing about how the economy works, how labor works, how markets work, how government subsidies work, and as a result, it's just completely, like, just empty, floundering like a fish in a desert. Like, what are you talking about? Why would you embarrass yourself in this way? And it is funny, TBM, that literally, like, these are the people who are like, oh my God, socialists think that everything should be free. Like, you guys don't know how the economy works. You don't know how any of this works. Like, don't talk about the economy. Like, bruh, is this your girl? Come on now.
Saying that they won't get paid because, like you said, you were born a woman.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody said that nobody's gonna get paid. The fuck?
You didn't ask to have periods, so now you have to go out and pay taxes on, you know, you have to pay more taxes than I do because I don't have to buy tampons or whatever, yeah.
True. Is this like a pandemic of women like bleeding through their clothes or something? Because I've worked with low-income families. This is never an issue I've ever heard other than on social media. Now,
I don't even know what the question she's asking means. It is certainly true that there are people that have periods that cannot afford the hygiene products to accommodate them. This does happen in reality. And if you've worked with low-income families before, I am shocked that you don't understand this. So when you're working with these low-income families, what is your prescription for them if they can't afford their menstrual products? Like just MacGyver or something? Just free bleed? Pull yourself up by your tampons. Jesus.
Are there instances, or may there be segments in people's lives where they need like things, or they need help, or they need the community to get behind them? Absolutely. But I don't think it's this huge crisis that everybody is making it out to be. I just have not seen it.
So because you haven't seen it, it doesn't exist. Okay.
Every woman should be a feminist. 3, 2, 1, go.
Once again, I feel like that kind of goes against everything that feminism stands for.
Most women should be feminists, but they are. I think to me they are. I don't know any woman that is not a feminist, but they don't call themselves that because of the extreme feminism. Like, for example, I like to serve my husband. You know, that's something I like. That doesn't make me not a feminist. That's who I am. He likes to do other things.
This is actually true, by the way, because that's not what feminism means. Feminism doesn't mean men suck, men bad, men should be less than, and all this kind of thing. Obviously, feminism rejects the forcing of women to be subservient to their husbands, which is not even to bring into the conversation gay women. People just have such a skewed idea of what feminism is supposed to be. It's very odd.
I change my tires. I will never do that. That doesn't mean I'm not a feminist, you know?
And that is officially a wrap, you guys.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
I can't put it.
High five.
Now this
Here you go. High five.
was a certified cringe moment. Dude, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about Super Mario 64. Leon, the undisputed, I don't know shit about wrestling, welterweight, featherweight champion of the world, rolled this entire panel. Let's go, dude. Well, that was fun. So this is not a good representation of the broader consensus on feminism and the dialectic between people who are pro-feminism and anti-feminism. It was fun. I hope you enjoyed. Well, there's another 2-hour segment on a 15-minute video to add to my collection. Oh, the comments! You're absolutely right. How could I forget? My heart broke for Leon during the discussion of trans women being real women. See the hurt in his eyes. Leon, if you're reading this, please note that the majority of feminists do accept those who are transgender. Obviously, TERFs are a very small minority of feminists in that they're not feminists. Of course we do. All genders are loved, accepted, and fought for, since feminism is all about equality. Let's go. Horrible replies? Oh, replies. Oh boy, let's go, dude. Some more transphobia on the YouTube comment section? No way. It's not like I've had to deal with this for the last 2 weeks.
Lamau. Say that to a bio female that loses a race because someone switched their gender.
Good one, dude.
I believe you could be a woman by gender, but never fully. Being a woman is about having a biological experience that could literally alter your thinking. If you can't experience it, you don't have the full experience.
So like intersex people, fuck off. Cis women with a genetic condition that makes them infertile, fuck off. So menopausal women, fuck off. Sure, dude.
Except they're not women, though, and you need to accept that. Over your compassion, truth needs to stay.
You're literally arguing against scientific consensus, you fucking moron. Jesus Christ.
They are not women based on the definition.
Actually, they are, based on the definition and scientific consensus. It's like banging your head against a wall. And I don't know, like, you gain nothing from being transphobic, like we talked about before. Like, it has to be some element of insecurity, right? From, like, a variety of sides. From the man's side, a lot of the insecurity is rooted in homophobia, in that they don't see trans women as women and see them as men because they're transphobic, and they have difficulty reconciling the fact that they might find a trans woman attractive and then have to do a little bit of, like, a super tiny pixel of introspection about their sexuality, which absolutely shatters the snowflake and causes all hell to break loose in their mind. You also have the TERF insecurity in regards to their misandry and how that manifests in their transphobia and how they see trans women being men, and how that almost nobody talks about trans men, by the way. Literally nobody focuses on trans men. It's not much to be gained from arguing with transphobes on the internet. Obviously, you should, in the proper context, argue in favor of trans people. For one, advocate for trans rights. For two, if you're an effective rhetorician, provide good rhetoric and arguments for other people to use, especially in their interpersonal life. It's obviously very important in those ways, but I don't know that you're ever gonna, like, change the mind of a transphobe about any of this shit. Because, like, you can't reason a person out of something that they didn't reason themselves into, right? Like, logic does not apply if the way they arrived at their conclusions was not based on any kind of logical method. So it's like, the best we can do is overwhelm them through force and numbers, which luckily it seems like we're doing. Trans rights are progressing in a positive direction. Now, not everywhere. There are a lot of anti-trans shit still going on, but we seem to be headed in an upward trajectory. The trans stock is going up, so that's good. And I think that's a good positive note to end on. We can't change the minds of these transphobes, but through education and utilizing their arguments to provide effective counter-arguments, which is exceptionally easy to do, we can help other people understand how to fight back against it in their interpersonal lives or online if that's something they choose to do. And we just overwhelm them with sheer number, because maybe I'm just optimistic, but I'm pretty sure there are more people out there that are compassionate and have empathy for people, even if they don't necessarily understand everything that person is going through, and are willing to be educated and not be transphobic as a response. Even if they might have some internalized transphobia, it's fairly easy to get around that a lot of the time through proper education, and that's all we can do. And I think we're in a good place in terms of getting to that hopefully good future where the ideals of feminism are actually realized and all of the genders are experiencing equality.